Morning. I'm speaking to you today on a number of issues and a number of things I'd like to say, but most of all, I'd like to speak to you about the sycophant that we know as Keir Starmer, the man that didn't want Donald Trump to come to Britain in his first term for a state visit, the man that even Starmer classed as right-wing, far-right, that David Lammy called a Nazi, that Labour themselves know that they've got to have dealings with this president, but at arm's length. They even tried to disrupt the presidential election by sending 100 people over to America to help the Democrats get elected, which we now know the Democrats under Joe Biden were as corrupt as hell. Elon Musk has done a fantastic job of uncovering the money from US aid that seems to be like a laundering exercise of money stolen from the taxpayer of America. He's also uncovered that there's a lot going on with Zelensky, the little short-ass bastard that jets around the world and doesn't spend a very long time in Ukraine where it's being bombed and people are being killed. He seems to spend more times in private jets and luxury hotels. Now, I don't use notes. I don't look at scripts. My name's not Keir Starmer that reads from a script that someone else has written for him. But I would like to play you two excerpts from the telephone call that Keir Starmer had with President Trump. I had to stop it halfway through because I did feel quite ill listening to it. As I say, the sycophant, the person that literally is like some sort of master-slave relationship literally stuck in my throat and made me feel quite ill. But here we go. Listen to what he has to say.
Thank you, Mr. President Donald. And this is a really fantastic, historic day in which we can announce this deal between our two great countries. And I think it's a real tribute to the history that we have of working so closely together. And I take tribute, Donald, to your negotiating team as well, particularly Howard and Jameson, who've done an incredible job, a very professional job, and my team as well.
Let me just stop it there because you can hear in Keir Starmer's voice that the insincerity of it, the over-the-top Donald, not President. I mean, you know, President Trump calls Keir Starmer Prime Minister or Minister, Mr. Starmer. But Keir Starmer tries to go over the top with this pleasantry. Oh, Donald, we're on first name terms. Keir Starmer didn't want, and let's remember this, didn't want Donald Trump as president visiting on a state visit in his first term to Britain. And yet now Keir Starmer is Prime Minister. We saw in an interview, televised interview, that he got a letter out of his pocket saying, oh, the King has invited you to Britain. Jesus Christ, the platitudes make me feel sick from this man, literally physically ill. You know, the man is an outright liar. He just lies and lies and lies. Doesn't mean a word of this, but you make your own mind up. In a minute, he's trying to compare himself with Churchill. We'll carry on.
Negotiating teams have worked at pace now for a number of weeks. Well, two negotiating teams have worked at pace now for a number of weeks to bring in this deal today. Really important deal. This is going to boost trade between and across our countries. It's going to not only protect jobs but create jobs, opening market access. And as you say, Donald, the timing couldn't be more apt because not only was it 80 years ago today that victory came for Europe at the end of the Second World War, but of course on that day the UK and the US stood together as the closest of allies. And Donald, I think that it was about this time of day, exactly 80 years ago, that Winston Churchill announced victory in Europe.
Now that was the point where there was a slight gap there that I had to cut it and literally I thought I was going to be sick. When Keir Starmer actually in one breath from Donald to Churchill You know, this is a man that took the bust of Churchill and the portraits of every leader, great leader of our nation, out of number 10 Downing Street. And yet, President Trump, when he got into the Oval Office, he had Churchill's bust reinstalled. You know, it seems the Americans are more about English history than the English people, British people are themselves, especially Keir Starmer. He seems to hate us so much that he even had the bust of Churchill taken out and the portrait taken down. And yet here he is on a phone call to President Trump. You know, 80 years ago today, Churchill, you know, I mean, the man is a sycophant. I'm sorry to say it again, but he just is. This is a slave master relationship. This isn't a trade deal. This is not a trade deal at all. This is capitulation of Starmer literally thrashing around for any deal that he can get. The Indian deal, incidentally, isn't a deal. We're being sold down the river. They can bring their families here. They don't have to pay national insurance. You know, he's sold our farmers out to people like Bill Gates and Larry Fink, the investment banker of the largest investment bank in the world. He's sold everyone out in this country. He sold, as I say, the fishermen out. He's now given the rights away to the fishing rights to the French and the European Union until 2038. I mean, what is the man trying to achieve? But we'll get back to that. Let's listen to some more of this.
And that led to great celebrations across Europe, across America, but particularly in the United Kingdom. Literally people going out into the street, putting bunting up, going up to the palace. And so to be able to announce this great deal on the same day, 80 years forward, almost at the same hour, and as we were 80 years ago, with the UK and the US standing side by side, I think is incredibly important and makes this truly historic. That close relationship has endured over those 80 years.
Now, he talks about this close relationship that's endured 80 years. The close relationship ended when Starmer was the shadow prime minister, or the in opposition, when he literally stood up in Parliament and said Donald Trump shouldn't be allowed here on a state visit. And then here we have this man, this puppet of Europe, this globalist, fawning all over a president, which is so insincere. It does make me feel physically ill. I kid you not. I can't stand this man, but we will continue.
You know, Donald, when it comes to defence and security and intelligence sharing, of course, there are no two countries that are closer than our two countries. And now we take this into new and important territory by adding trade and the economy to the closeness of our relationship. It is built, as you say, on those notions of fairness and reciprocal arrangements. We've always had a fair and balanced arrangement between our countries.
I'm sorry, it does go on a bit more, but I cannot listen to any more of it. I mean, it's complete bullshit from Keir Starmer. There's no other word for it. You know, wake up and smell the coffee is nothing to it. You know, you might as well be in a farmyard with the amount of manure that comes out of this guy's mouth. It's disgusting. Everything Keir Starmer ever says is a lie. He goes back on his word. Nothing in the manifesto that he said to get voted in under a fraudulent vote. It was a fraudulent vote to get Keir Starmer into office. And what's he done? The black hole. The black hole now stands at over £60 billion. You know, he's borrowed more and more and more. And yet he went on about a £22.5 billion black hole from the Tories. Now, the Tories weren't the best at all. I mean, they started this thing on the immigration side of it. But Keir Starmer, we're going to do this. We're going to stop immigration. My God, it's rocketed. It's like this is one of Elon Musk's starships. It's a rocket, but it keeps returning. We keep sending people back and they keep coming over on rubber boats. It's ridiculous. It's got to stop, but it won't under Labour. The only chance we've got, and I'm not a lover of Nigel Farage. I don't you know, I'm not saying Farage, but he's the only hope we have. And if people do not vote Labour, I mean, on the elections that we've just had, 12,000 nutcases, insanity, still voted for Labour, even after 10 months of Starmer being in government and what's happened. He still managed to pull 12,000 votes. And, you know, fortunately, Reform got in by 6 votes. But is there still 12,000 complete lunatics out there? I think there must be. That, you know, because that was the amount voted, unless it was a fraudulent vote. It wouldn't surprise me. It happens in America. It happens in other countries. Why couldn't it happen here? I mean, I'm literally any day now, I'm looking at maybe Keir Starmer announcing that there's amnesty for millions and millions of illegal immigrants that's come to here. And because they've got amnesty, they've got all the benefits and all the rights to vote. Then we will never get Labour out. They could do that. They've got the mandate to actually do it. They've got the votes in Parliament to do it. They can actually do this. I mean, who would have thought that in under a year, after 17.2 million people voted to leave Europe, that we will be taken back into Europe, all but name only that we're not in Europe, but we're tied up to the laws. We're giving money into Europe. We've given fishing rights away. Now we are going to be governed by the laws of the European Court yet again. These were some of the things that we voted to leave Europe over. The corrupt Brussels, that's what we wanted to get away from. Keir Starmer said he's going to tackle the immigration. He's going to stop the immigration. He's gone after legal immigration with visas, cutting back on the amount of visas, not stopping the boats, not reversing the ECHR, which he should do. If we come out of that, we've got a legal right to stop the boats and protect our shores, protect our country, but he won't come out of that. But what he has done is open the floodgates for Indian workers to come over here and displace people here. He's opened the floodgates for a firm called Serco, who are going around offering more in rents, and people are being evicted from their homes to live on the streets or replace the illegals that are in the hotel that English families are going into, British families are going into, and the illegal immigrants are taking their homes. That's in a nutshell what it comes down to. Because if you price it so much so that the only ones that can afford these properties are the government handouts to the illegal immigrants, how are British families on limited wages that haven't really improved for a number of years, how are they supposed to afford the rents and the mortgages on these places? They can't. It's impossible. We are now being priced out of our homes and onto the streets, and that's what's happening under this Labour government. We also have a Labour government that now, because they're taking us back into Europe in all but name, we are now opening the floodgates for under 35s and the dependents to come here on apprenticeships, when Britain itself has got 14% unemployment in its youth. But in Europe, they have 18% unemployment for their youth. So where do you think they're going to come to when you open the floodgates and we give more handouts yet again? Where are we supposed to put a possibility of 80 million Europeans that can come to this country? Where are we supposed to put maybe 2.5 million people, which Keir Starmer said if there is a war or a conflict between Pakistan and India, that if these Pakistanis that are still living in India, which could be as many as 2.5 million, maybe more, they could come to Britain. This isn't utopia. This is an island, and it's an island that's only so big and it's only got so many resources. And we are seeing our resources eroded each day. Prices are going up. You can't get a doctor. You have to wait for operations, sometimes over 18 months. You can't get a dentist. Schools are being overcrowded. Streets are not being swept. And councils haven't got the money to fill the potholes in. And Keir Starmer, his answer to that, well, if you don't fill the potholes, we cut back on the money that councils get. That's not an answer. That's not a solution. That's blackmail. And now we come to blackmail, shall we? Well, the Ukraine isn't part of NATO. The Ukraine isn't even in the EU. Why the hell are we giving all this money to Ukraine to fight a war that's endless, that is a money-making machine for Zelensky and Zelensky alone? Could it be that there's some form of blackmail going on? And I say this quite candidly, that blackmail is when you've got a hold over someone, maybe some information over someone, and you want them to do something for you, either money or favours. Now, we've seen this before with a person called Lord Ali that was giving gifts to Keir Starmer. Now, they're classed as gifts. Other people may class them as bribes, but we take it that they're gifts. Why would someone, a Muslim who's openly gay, why would this person that doesn't celebrate Christmas be giving gifts to Keir Starmer every few months? Money, suits, glasses, you name it, he's given these gifts, expensive gifts. I was actually told or informed that it was over £100,000 worth of gifts. Now, are these really gifts? What does he expect in return? I mean, a person doesn't just give these gifts. If I gave a gift to my wife, an expensive gift, time and time again, yes, she would be quite chuffed with it at first, but then she'd look at, where's it coming from? What does he want? Why does he keep doing this? It's quite a natural thing to ask, really. And I'm asking the question, why would Lord Ali keep giving these gifts unless he got something in return? We know he had unfettered access to 10 Downing Street. What meetings was he privy to, and what was said at those meetings? We've had Keir Starmer lying about staying at Lord Ali's apartment, I think, for months at a time. That's what I understand it to be. Why would he lie about it? Why were there meetings held in a non-government building which wasn't secure and could have had leaks of national security interests given out by microphone, being overheard, people being there that shouldn't be there, unvetted? This was done at a private address. Now, this is literally putting national security on the back burner, and it's literally just for the personal use of Starmer, using someone else's luxury apartment. Now, could it be what's happening lately is something about a Ukraine young man who's supposed to be some sort of a male model, which also people are reporting, allegedly, that he's a rent boy. Now, a rent boy terminology is someone that sells his body for a price for sex. That's the terminology of a rent boy. Now, is this true? I don't know. But it's very strange that someone of his age, with his limited capabilities, could actually find out two actual addresses that Starmer's lived at and does live at, and a car that Starmer must have once owned or does own. I don't know. But these things can be easily checked by the police. The DVLA can check the ownership of the vehicle. The land registry can check the ownership of properties. Now, it has been alleged also that one of these properties that the set light to was owned or ownership of a shell company by Lord Ali. I don't know if this is true, but it's quite easy for the police to check. We've heard nothing from the Labour Party. We've heard nothing from Starmer, which is unusual. What is unusual is that we've heard nothing from the mainstream media about this. They're definitely quiet. This is completely unusual. Now, why is it unusual? Because you've got a high-profile prime minister of a country, a Western country. You've got a Ukrainian person, allegedly, now two others arrested, allegedly, that are also Ukrainian or got links with Ukraine, and Starmer falling over himself to do as much as he can for Zelensky over Ukraine. I come back to my earlier conversation that I've had here with you today about gifts and bribes and what could be classed as blackmail. Now, I'm not saying it is. It's my opinion. You've got to draw the lines up to the dots and make your own opinions up. But when people are very quiet on these issues, there usually is no smoke without fire. That's what they say. Now, what's Labour's response to this? They've put out a number of stories to literally deflect from the main story of what's going on in Starmer's life. We've had stories reported in newspapers of castration for paedophiles. Well, that's never going to happen. You know, we can't even get rid of them out the country, even when they've raped young children and completed a prison sentence, we still can't seem to send them home. So castration is a non-starter. It's just literally to deflect from one story to another. It's called the sleight of hands, the magician's trick, the smoke and mirrors. And this is what Labour do. It's just smoke and mirrors. Now, we have got years of this to come. Unless a story breaks that's so bad, it's like Profumo with Christine Keeler, and sharing secrets with a Russian at the time, or because they were both seeing the same woman. And he resigned. He had the good grace to resign. Even though he lied to Parliament about it, he had the good grace to resign. We have Keith Vass with Paying Rent Boys, and he had the good grace to resign. If this is proven, if it is proven against Starmer, I hope that he's got enough. Well, I don't think he has, but I hope and pray that he's got enough gumption to go straight away, to resign. If it is lies, if it is made up, then we all owe Starmer an apology. And I would be the first to apologise over it. But over what he's done, it would be an apology just for this. It wouldn't be an apology for the fraudulent way that he's taken power of a country as a leader. And let's get back to this, the leader of a country that we don't select, and we don't vote for the leader, we vote for the party. The party themselves vote for their leader, their leadership, their dictator in Starmer's case. I think that's got to change. When you've got a manifesto and you make promises and pledges, if you don't keep them within 120 days, if you haven't actually triggered or intend to trigger at least 5 of the 10 points that Starmer had in his manifesto, then I think it triggers a new general election. Because we cannot keep going down the road like this time and time again of politicians lying to us, bare-faced lies. I've had enough of it. I believe you've had enough of it. And thank you very much for listening to my rant and this video. Goodbye from me from today.